Hi everyone, and welcome to this quick tutorial to show you how to create 3D grids utilizing Revit and Dynamo. So many of you will be aware that if you take a look at any kind of two-dimensional view in Revit, such as plans, sections and elevations, obviously you can clearly see the grid. But of course, when we're in a three-dimensional view, such as this, we can't see the grid. So what I've done here is I've just created a Dynamo script to actually create the grid, and I'll run it first. And then we'll go through how the Dynamo script actually works. So here's the result. So you can now see that we have a grid in 3D space, of course, that we can visualize and look at. So before we actually go into the families, let's take a look at the Dynamo graph itself. So I'll break this down into small stages. So the first step here is to take the grid category over here. We're then getting all the elements of that category. So in this case, we're getting 27 grids. This little utility here then divides the grids into horizontal and vertical grids, and then grid curve will get the underlying geometry from that. So what we're then doing is we're getting the start point and the end point of those curves. Don't forget, in Dynamo a curve could be a line as well. What then happens is we take the start point from this, and we're putting down a grid head family on that, as you can see there. Then what I've got here is an element set parameter by name, and what I can actually do here is set the grid reference, which is the actual value of the grid, and of course that's being read down here by this little node here, element get parameter value by name, which is reading the physical horizontal grid positions. And of course I've got the same with the vertical grids. So actually on the horizontal grid here, as we start to transition across this, this is creating the grid heads itself. This is getting the grid references. Then what we're doing over here, what this is doing is this is then creating a line that fits between the grid head diameters over here, and then I'm adding down an adaptive component to that. So I've got an adaptive component by 2 points that's been inserted there, and all of this area of the graph here is taking that line, it's then actually chopping it down by the grid head radius, and then we've got this curve extend start and curve extend end, which takes the original line, which will go to the center of the grid heads, and then cuts off the radius at each end. Okay, and obviously we've got an exact repeat of that for the vertical grids. So that's the Dynamo graph. So let's take a look at the families in a little bit more closer way. So if I select this grid head here, we can see that we have some parameters attached to this. So over here I have the circle height, so that's the actual physical height of the grid, the inner diameter, the outer diameter, and the actual grid head text size, as well as the grid reference, which is the actual value of the grid. So let's edit this family, and I'll show you how this works. Now first, you can see that I've got a bit of 3D text in here. So if we go ahead and edit this family, this is a nested family. What we've got here is some three-dimensional text, and you can see here we have on a subcategory called 3D grids, which is good. So that means I can switch it on and off. More importantly with this, if we select it in here, what it will actually have is contents. And you can see here that I've linked the 10 in this case to something called a text value, yeah, in there. Okay, so what that means is if I go into my parameters here, there's the text value. If I put in 99 in there, for example, let's just do that. Okay, and we'll then OK that. You can obviously see that changes. So what we've then got is that's then nested in here. And of course, don't forget, when you're wanting to promote your parameters up, you can just go to type properties here, and you can link the parameters from the nested family to the top level family. So that's a simple family there with a simple extrusion and some 3D text. So that's what's been inserted here. Then we move on to the adaptive component. Now you can see here that this kind of bar fits perfectly between the grid head here. If we edit the family, then you can see in here I've got a real simple adaptive family. So I've got grid diameter at one end, grid diameter at the other end, and then what I've got are two adaptive points in there. So just to give you a bit of a reminder, you can drop down 2 points, make them adaptive like so. And then, of course, you can put a spline between them, and then I've simply got a circle that's extruded down that. Okay, so that actually creates the actual physical line. And then, of course, as you can see there, Dynamo is then adding both of those elements horizontally and vertically to your physical model. Now, like I said before, I've got some subcategories assigned to these families. So, of course, if I need to control the visibility of them, I can just go down to my generic models, which is the actual category they're on. Here's my subcategory called 3D grids. And you can see I can obviously switch those on and off quite easily and comfortably. The other thing I've done as well is I've actually added in something called an IFC export as property. So if I do make an IFC file from this, then they'll come across as IFC grids, which is quite nice. Okay, hope that's been of use to you. Now, unfortunately, with my current blog, I can't actually post any physical files up there, so I can't post these families. But if you need those, I don't mind emailing them. Okay, speak to you soon. Bye bye.